is coming. I have a lot of tabs open, so I can take care of it. Um, you want to turn off the volume for the microphone, or at least or like the sound that comes inside here with the microphone. The sound that projects into the room, I guess. Yeah.
Every time I try to
And
dance on my shirt.
for the microphone as well too.
You should. It's gonna do a thing. You don't want to bring back at the same time.
Okay.
It'll try, I already checked it. We're good.
Awesome. Hi y'all.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm
We're not
ready.
live.
Microphone one.
Heyo.
All right, it's happening. I am Cecilia Prado Rebeltosa,
And I am DJ Fernie Mac.
and we are friends to the left for one more episode every Wednesday at 4 p.m. on WDYO. And yes, you are welcome. Absolutely. So we are a little bit later than usual.
Things happen.
Yeah, I mean that was my fault. Sorry.
Don't be. I feel like I was ready to do it by myself, and I was just gonna have an episode about how unpredictable days can be, and when things pop up. And
Absolutely.
I feel like you deserve that time to be away. If you needed to step away, I hope you know I got you. I was ready to handle it. Might have had to call Alfredo here, but maybe you can share on that really quick because you got busy for a good reason, right?
Yes, absolutely. So So on Friday we had one of the most amazing things happen. You are also seeing, if you are seeing this video right now, please share into your groups, please share with your homies. So
Hey, Mom.
yes, hi mom. So I was on Friday.
Yeah.
So a lot of workers call workers' dignity for many reasons. Like it's usually wage theft or workers' compensation.
Yeah.
Workers who are fed up, who already quit, maybe they quit a shitty job and now they want us to do something about it, and or they were fired without justification, right? They endure like awful conditions in their workplace, and then they're coming to us and be like, hey, by the way, I am fed up. I was fired, and now I really want to vent about everything that happened at my company. And one thing that we tell them is like, we can maybe do something now, but you, as workers, there's never going to be a better time to do something than when you are actually working for the company, right? Or working for your employer, because you are actually, producing something from them. They want something from you. You have leverage. So if you really want to create change at your workplace, if you really want to even get back at your boss, like if that's where you're at right now, where you can really do it is if you stay. Don't quit your shitty job. Organize it, right? And so it's very hard for many workers to come to that conclusion. They are like, well, I was a perfect employee the whole time. Like I thought that was gonna make them see my value, and then they fire me after years of working for this company. There's a funny glitch.
Oh no.
There's we are working towards it.
It's looking like it's a Wi-Fi issue.
Perhaps. Let's see. I think we're good.
I think we're good.
Okay. So, as I mentioned, there's never going to be a better time to create change in your workplace than when you're actually working for your employer, when you actually have leverage, when you actually, have the power to organize and completely change the conditions.
Yeah.
And so, it's very hard because most workers don't do anything until they're fired. It's too late to actually do something.
Yeah.
And so on Friday, we got this phone call.
Ring, ring, ring.
Yeah, it was a woman, and she's like, well, I have a case, I hope that you can support me. And I went into the mode, of course, what can we do, what happened, you got fired. I was just expecting the regular thing, but it was actually, she was like, well, me and my other co-workers, all women, immigrant women from Honduras, and all of them had gone on strike on Friday, written a demand letter to their raise, right? Yeah. So most of them were earning $15 an hour, and they wanted to earn $17. They were promised by management since March that they were gonna get $2 raises, and they were also asking to hire additional staffing in their departments because they were basically washing like thousands and thousands of dishes, utensils, plates, linen, between teams of 2 and 3 people a day, right? So that's a lot. They were asking for one more person to be hired in 2 different departments, $2 an hour. It was very, very basic what they were needing. And it came to the point, last week they had a meeting with management, and management was basically like, oh, we don't know what you're talking about. Like, we never really promised raises. That was only one conversation. Like, I don't know how you take it seriously. And so management is, they work for this company called EventWorks, which is right next to the offices of the Nashville Food Project. So if you work for the Nashville Food Project, or Frotty Monkey, it's like by Frotty Monkey as well, the Nations.
Yeah, over in West Nashville, or near West Nashville. Whoa! I took somebody for an interview there yesterday.
Oh, really?
I didn't know it was EventWorks.
Oh my God! Because
yeah, exactly.
you organize a staffing agency workers. Okay, so they're basically trying to cover. Okay, so this is new. This is live. This is organic. This is
how it happens usually.
Okay, so so they are replacing the 7 workers with day laborers. Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
So.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, this is all connected.
But so what's happening? What are these?
So basically, they went on strike and they got fired. So at 8 a.m. they went on strike. The 7 women. At 10 a.m. they got fired through individual text messages. But one of them, like,
through text messages.
Yes, but one of them, very strong leader. And her name is Leticia. They were like management. Yeah, shout out to Leticia. She comes from like the student movement in Honduras. She is like a self-declared like socialist, and so she comes from like the Frente de Reforma Universitaria, right? The FRU. So it's like a bunch of like the student movement in Honduras. She is one of the leaders. She received a text message from management, and I do love when I see this, because you have a really good leader when management just comes and tells you like, what do you want? Yeah. So they just text her, so what do you want? And I know, and she's like, well, I already told you what I want, but so they told her, well, by the way, you actually do have a job, but you have to show up and you have to present with your human resources on Monday. So we go, and we go as a team. We go like all 7 of Las Guerreras Hondureñas, which is the name of their committee. That's how they're calling themselves.
Early in the morning.
The Honduran Warriors. And all these ladies go, and when management sees that they are actually still acting as a team, as a group, they don't want to talk. The human resources person doesn't want to talk to Leticia, right? So we're here together ever since, because workers have the right to organize in the workplace, and if an employer retaliates like that, I mean, that is a violation of the federal law. They also were not allowed to talk about wages in the workplace, which is also illegal, and it's also a violation of the same law. So like if you and your coworkers talk and they ask for your boss for a raise as a group, like 2 or more, or if you if the boss doesn't allow you to talk about your wages with your coworkers or disclose them, like they're in violation of federal law. And so we supported the women to file an unfair labor practice, and then let's see what happens, but it was very inspiring. Yeah. Because you don't see that. No. Everybody's so afraid to take collective action.
We already took an action. We just need you to come step in with us right now.
Absolutely. They did everything. They did it in a demand letter. It was impeccable. The demands were clear, concise. Like they're not like they have it down. I was so inspired by them, and they're all women. Women
I love that, because that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to build worker power. It is not, amongst the crew you are already in, there is organizers. They are organizers. As long as you have the people, you have the opportunity. And they didn't come in and say like, hey, we need a little help, like a little education. Like they did the work.
They did the footsteps.
Yeah. So shout out to them. Solidarity. We're with you. I don't know if we can discuss this some more later, but I would love to find out how or if anybody else who wanted to support them could be a better support.
Yes, so we have a call to action right now. I'm gonna put it. So if you want to support these like 7 Honduran immigrant workers who have the guts that not many workers out there have,
Yeah.
and they took a stand together to like just ask for better conditions and try to create a real change in the workplace. You can call the general, like the market executive, so like the boss, the Nashville boss. This is a big multi-million-dollar company, by the way.
Yeah.
It's a multi-million-dollar company, and they're not treating their workers well. Most of the workers earn $15 an hour, and you know many of these folks are single mothers, right? They were like, okay, we have childcare, we have rent, we have all these things. We can no longer survive in Nashville at $15 an hour. We want $2 more at least. And so they're so brave. Call Graham Baker and tell them to get the women their jobs back.
Yep.
Tell them to give them the raises that were promised, and tell them to hire the one additional staff member in the areas they asked for.
Yep.
So the phone number is 615-714-7740. So please do.
Again,
That's a way.
that number is 615-714-7740. Ooh.
Get it down.
Get it down. One more time, 615-714-7740. And you're calling Grant Baker. Tell him to give them their raises and their increases and, respect their wishes. That
Absolutely.
is crazy.
I know. This is what I'm saying.
Oh my gosh. We could talk more about this after.
It's a lot.
I can help you with you. Everything on the next week. Oh my gosh.
I know. So, this is a multi-million-dollar company, and they just like prefer to fire workers rather than they don't want workers who are organized, because once that they go in, like they feel like they're just it's gonna be contagious. And in fact, it's kind of contagious. Like it was kind of inspiring to be outside of Event Works on a Monday, and many of the truck drivers, like they just beeped in agreement. They were like, "We're with you. Like we feel you." They're also fed up.
Okay.
I mean, other workers seem to be also fed up.
Yeah.
So if you're a worker at Event Works and you're fed up, just know also that if you show support for the organizing that is happening already, if you show support, you also get fired or you also get any kind of repercussion or retaliation. That also is protected under the NLRA. So you can call us, give us a call, and let us know that this is happening, and we can support.
Yep.
So
one thing I love to tell people, because everybody's concerned about at will. We're gonna definitely be talking about right to work at some point, but right to work a little confusing. At will states that law is so clear, like that that these bosses understand it. That's why they flex it. The power to just fire somebody for absolutely no reason. But one of the only things to protect yourself from at will firings are organized efforts and showing that you have made statements, grievances with your boss, and tried to contribute to making it better, but also that communal effort showing that two or more have come together and tried to make their work experience a little bit better.
Absolutely.
So, y'all should be doing this out of practice. Not even, maybe you're not ready for a union, but out of practice, you should be getting together with your coworkers and communicating about the issues at play.
I mean, I think the thing is, like, if your employer doesn't let you do that, like they're basically in violation of federal law anyways. So just let us know when this is happening.
Again, this is, by the way, this is outside of work. Allowed to organize outside of work. I don't know if it's protected while at work.
It's not. So basically, you have to completely keep doing your job, and it's your decision ultimately, right? But you don't want to lose. Like, when you're organizing a union, like every soldier, as I say, is valuable, right? Like everybody can, especially when you're organizing a new union, it's very valuable. So definitely, we don't want to lose our people, and so we want to organize during our breaks or before or outside of work.
Exactly. Before or outside of work or during your breaks, get together. It is the only thing I know that'll protect you from an at-will firing.
So just one more time, if you want to support these 7 Honduran women who were fired for striking, for exercising the right to organize, they were brave. Call Grant Baker from Event Works in Nashville and tell them to stop union busting, to get their women their jobs back, to give them the salary increases they were promised months ago, to hire additional staff members so the workload is not unbearable. So this is one of the basic things. Like, it's so easy for the company that earns it's supposed to be the largest event rental company in the Southeast. So I feel like they could, afford $2 more per worker.
Yeah, they're all over.
Beautiful. So let's take it back. I feel like I just got really. Let's take it back. So what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about two things. One, intersectionality. Should we just start there, or should we introduce the next bit?
Let's talk about it. It's post
Okay.
intersectionality, right?
Yeah. So intersectionality. I have a definition pulled up for you all. So intersectionality is the interconnected nature of social organizations, such as race, class, and gender, as they apply to a given individual or group, regarded as creating overlapping and interdependent systems of discrimination or disadvantage. We're going to roll through that one more time, but a little bit slower. So, intersectionality. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Six syllables. Intersectionality. The interconnected nature of social categorizations such as race, class, and gender. These things that make up a lot of the rules that we live in: race, class, and gender. Are you black or white? Are you rich or poor? Are you male, female, non-binary? And then as they apply to a given individual or group. So you being in all of these categories, you might share them as a group. There's some experience, but you also have some individual niches that also separate you from the group in that experience. And these are regarded as creating overlapping and interdependent systems of discrimination or advantage. There's some discrimination that you are sharing with people because of the color of your skin. Certain feelings that you share with somebody about the worldview around you due to the color of your skin. And then there's also some experiences that you share due to the fact that maybe you are a low-wage worker. Maybe you're making $8, $9, $10 an hour. Or, the 1%, very small group of people sharing a big, massive experience. Not many people can afford, you get it. Not many can afford the lives that they live. These big owners, the Walton brothers, the Koch brothers, Tron,
all of them.
Yeah,
all of
them.
the brothers.
The original. Anyways, yes, and then based on gender, we've had some experiences recently. Golly, I'm very disappointed in some men right now. A lot of them, but
tell us.
Tell us. Well, this also plays a part. You mentioned something earlier that I wanted to speak to, because you talked about these ladies, all of them women, working this job at $15 an hour, right?
Yes. So they went on strike. Yeah.
So there's some stats that go on that show in Nashville that post-COVID, the people who are the most fragile and the most discriminated against, they lost security the most. Were women working here in Nashville, a lot of them being single moms. Their job, the jobs that they're offered, like these ones here, or the jobs that they're pushed to, especially through different agencies, hiring agencies, are not jobs that are paying $20+ an hour, but they are pushed and they are siphoned and they are moved towards these jobs that pay $15, $12 an hour. And these are the mothers to the children who we are raising in this city. They're building up. They're building up the society, the young folks, the ones who are coming up, going to school and whatnot. And the best we can give them is a very low standard of pay and a lot of insecurity. We know that Nashville's survival wage is around $18 an hour, but we're not even giving them that. So what does that say about how we care about our kids and the folks coming up? We're not willing to regulate that. And I say we because we haven't done anything. We haven't done enough to make change. So until that change has occurred, I'm just going to lump us all in. But anyways.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? It means that we're not listening. We're not taking care. We are not holding the right people accountable. And it shows that we do not value the women in this society as much as we do men in this society. And that is an example of this intersectionality where these class and these workspaces, family spaces play out.
I think that I love this topic of intersectionality because we throw it around so easily. I mean, we throw everything. We're intersectional. But actually, I think that at the end of this conversation, maybe we'll find out that it's not. It's actually a hard concept to nail, in practice specifically, right?
It's a trending word right now.
Some people
are sick of it. Some people are still trying to claim it.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, I love it. I think that it's necessary, but I feel like we need to also look into all these different things.
Yeah.
And I think that we are not like when we come into different spaces, I think that we can be very like what single issue in our brains. It's like, okay, I intersectionality to me means that like, or the way that I envision or like get the impression that maybe folks are doing is that they're looking at, okay, many people in the room, some are poor, some are black, some are like some are women, or identify as women, like some are trans, and like we know that that's not the case, that many people can have different intersections, but I feel like we go for like whatever's most visible right away. And we also take such individualist looks or perspectives
approaches
into,
to these intersections.
Yes. I mean,
do you roll slow to the intersection? Do you roll fast? I don't know. Keep going.
Absolutely. No. Absolutely. I mean, I think that it's important to realize, for example, let's just give some context as to like what is the main point of the concept, right? We live in this capitalist society. The analysis that I am taking, and I know that you share too, is that we are living in this society that is based on a capitalist system, which is based on genocide, slavery, that's colonization, right? In a nutshell. And that in patriarchy, right? Like we are based, like that's the bedrock of this country, of the system that we're living. We are like class is at the bottom, right? So class is the product of the system, right? Because at the end of the day, the system is put in place not because there are differences in value between people. That's not the case. If we believe that there are biological, true, real differences in the capacity or the humanity of different people, then we are called essentialists, and that is hella problematic. But actually, like why the systems were put in place is about power. There's a few people that wanted to take all the land, all the resources, all of that for themselves. And in order to do that, they have to exploit other groups of people, or the majority of people, right? Like we like to say the word minorities, and I'm like, where is the minority? Like, right? Like the majority is oppressed. The majority is oppressed, and repeat that. Like there's no oppressed minorities.
Repeat that.
Minorities, they're not oppressed minorities. There's an oppressed majority, and within the oppressed majorities, there's different kinds of communities with rights to self-determination, of course. But like class, like everything was oppressed, so people could have. There's few people who have more wealth, more resources, more land, the water, everything, right? They control everything.
Controlling of the system.
Absolutely. So that is class. That's when we think of class, like that's class, right? Like the access to the material resources, material conditions, and to dignity, right? And to to be able to like not be exploited, like not stolen our labor, right? And then you have different functions of class, right? Different tools that the oppressors use to take away power, resources, land, and that's race, gender, physical ability, orientation. So all these different kinds of quote unquote minorities or like identities are, oppressed and scapegoated from the beginning of the settler project to, make sure that the colonizers get the dough, right? So it's important to like put that framework, right? And I'm gonna do there. What do you think of that?
I think a lot of things.
You see it a lot.
I think you took it to school. Which is good. That's what we're here for. This is.
It's
intentional.
You're sure if you want that.
Yeah, I want that. Because there's a lot of things. I think it fuels a lot of the things that we have to unlearn in terms of how we view priority.
Absolutely.
If we walk into a room, and this is probably the more hard truth. I think this is the hard truth, a hard truth. But if we walk into a room and we see several people who look just like us, but somebody has a Benz, somebody has a '98 Pontiac, somebody has like a 2000 Cherokee, whatever. We got these different walks of life, these different statuses, class statuses. We've got these different levels of like affording and enjoying life. We got people who need to be more resourceful and people who have all resources at hand, just because they've got the card, they got the dough, they control the system, and they control the resources. We got a group of people in a room, all look like you, and they mix on all these different levels, but they look like you. And the assumed position is that they probably share some experience to you, but when you walk out of this place, maybe you have to pump your own gas, or maybe you're paying somebody else to pump your gas. These are two very different lived experiences. So maybe priority walking into the room was, we look the same. But what needs to shift in that mindset of, when we're talking about our needs, you'll find out very quickly our needs do not align based on the resources we have. So then we're looking at class. But that is not always brought up so easily. So in terms of everything you just said, yeah, this is a big learning curve, and this is kind of what we were looking for to like push on people over more.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like I see it like if people get so very single issue.
Mm-hmm.
There's some folks that are it's like class reductionism, where there's like everything now is about money, everything is about all these things, right? Everything is just about class. It's about capitalism.
So it's a general.
Yeah.
More than a little. But.
And it's like not, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It is the basis, right? It is the end goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for us that are seeing, like we're talking about like intersectionality and how capitalism based on colonialism and patriarchy is put in place so few people can have access to the land and resources and power. And the functions and the tools that they use to oppress is race, class, gender, orientation.
Mm-hmm.
But that also translates to some like social conditions, right? Like some people are like, it's all about the material conditions, but biases, discrimination, and all of that even folks that look that have better that they grew up bougie, but they might look like you or they might look like me, they still experience some discrimination, and that's true because it is just a culture that the oppressors have to create. But the end goal, like we never should forget it, right? The end goal is so the people that might look like us, that have it harder, that are more directly affected, so that they take their money, they take their land, to take the resources, right? That's the end goal. So we need to think of that, right? We need to think of, yes, like how do we hold that complexity that it's not just about class, and it's not just about race either.
Yeah.
It's not just about gender.
They are working together. All of these.
Women who are Hillary Clinton has nothing. I cannot empathize. I cannot like there's really we don't have the same class interests.
Yeah.
Like even Beyonce, like I love it. I've been listening to like Renaissance a lot, but I also do know that she doesn't have my class interests. She's never held a shitty job before, for wages, right? So there is that disconnect. What do you think?
I think this is going to be the typical part moving forward. I'm like, I don't even remember this person's name, so I'm not directly outing them, but somebody came up to me. I told you about this. Somebody came up to me and was like, after some organizing meeting, they came up to me and they were like, hey, I come from a higher socioeconomic background, and I have a lot of resources I can offer. And I'm telling this because it's like, okay, I already knew Austin Rip. Like, I know where they go to school. I kind of know a little bit about what they've got going on. This group, whatever. But one, that took maybe it took some humility to come up and say that, and then acknowledge their status and say whatever it is I want to be able to support, But that's not happening. That doesn't. I am not brought up with class. Class is not always a front-facing thing when you walk into a room. It takes some dialogue, it takes some conversation to be able to start off with somebody, because this person had just introduced themselves to me, to be able to start off that way, it honestly helps us create some grounding of, okay, you're admitting off the bat that you're probably not going to relate to some experiences that I've had. real quick, let me backtrack a little bit more because this is so confusing. It is so hard. This intersection, these intersections. I've told you many times.
It's hard.
Yeah.
We can talk about this. Like this could be a show about intersections.
This could be a show, right? Because we've got more. But I've told you before. I grew up in Florida, smallish town, and in elementary school, I did go to a private school. Didn't think anything of class as a kid. Didn't think of like what that meant to have gone to a private school. Don't get me wrong, like this private school is in a double wide trailer and, had one teacher to like 20 something students. But, it had its benefits. I know my mom got some scholarship, but of course she had to be paying something, I assume. I remember leaving the school and I think they might have given us more scholarship for me to go back, which like spoke to, class to some degree. Like we realized in that moment, we leaving this school like, oh, can't really afford this, don't want to afford this. Oh, now y'all have some more money to help out. But anyways, like in that school, young black kid, a couple of Hispanic kids, we carpooled together. It was dope. And then a bunch of white kids. Again, no talk of class, highly putting on this idea of we're all the same. But we saw each other's houses. We knew it was different. In that way, we could define class a little bit more as kids. But we figured out it was different between that and cars and things like that. But, that is such, even in that, having to come to terms with, okay, like I had that privilege or I had that, and this might go into difference politics. I'm not going to go into it yet, but it does go into how you have to identify yourself and how much time that might take and how that might look at counting your experiences.
Yes.
We're planning and we're hoping, and we'd love to have some of y'all in there. We want to have a conversation around how do you survive? Just to go to work and say, my bills are paid, good. But do you also go get plasma? I've also been there. Do you get a credit card from your parents? Do you have a part-time job? Do you have 3 part-time jobs?
Ooh.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh
and
my God.
That it is so complex, but it really does, it's going to be some call-outs, discussing experience, acknowledging the truth in these things.
Absolutely. And class is such a hidden thing that obscures it, right? So I think that, we can think about, there is this concept, and we kind of touched it a little bit during the last conversation, right? Talking about how we cannot be representing a community, right? I cannot speak for the immigrant community because I do not have, there's different material conditions. So now we're talking about class, right?
Yeah.
There's different class-based experiences that statistically are linked to specific identity categories.
Yeah.
So race, gender, ability, orientation, right? So they are because, as we were talking about, race, gender, orientation, ability are tools that the oppressors have used to deprive people and take all the power, land, and resources. So statistically, of course, they align, but that's not the case, for everybody in the community. There's actually at this point, as a result of a lot of struggles, powerful struggles that have been led by many communities, there's now a lot more diversity in terms of class experiences than it's ever been.
Yeah.
So now you have folks that might be Latinx or Black or that are capitalists, or we can have girl bosses everywhere, right? We see that we see folks of historically oppressed categories in these positions where it's completely different. Hi, Monica. And thank you for sharing, thank you for being here. And so what we were talking about last week was deference politics, right? So we're so used to being in these rooms that are very privileged, right? As organizers that are paid, we are privileged because we sit in these strategy rooms and sometimes we decide what happens with as a director. I have sometimes the power to guide strategic decisions. And it is very dangerous when one single individual from one of those identity categories that are statistically connected with material conditions is very, very dangerous to, like, just use our individual experiences to guide the priorities of a movement, right? Like to say, like, the most important thing is this, because this is what bothered me during my whole time, or because this is the things that I struggled with in my college education or in my master's degree. And if you think about it, this discrimination that you're experiencing is real, but you are also the elite of your community, because most of the people in my community are not in college. They are not getting PhDs, right? And if we really want to prioritize, we want to prioritize the folks in our communities that are struggling the most, because what we really want is to keep our people alive, so there can be a whole diversity of culture, right? A whole diversity of everything. We want our people to be alive first and foremost.
Can I tag in real quick? Because I hear you mentioning, like, folks who've gone to college, and, like, once you're in college, once you get your senior year, freshman year, whatever, just being on campus, you realize, like, oh shit, or oh shoots, I made it. And I don't know, it might have taken some clawing, right? Like, you had to fight to get to that point, yeah?
Absolutely.
I felt like I had to fight to get to that point, to be able to get to college. But then, I'm working and I'm in school, like, that sucks too, but, like, you've made it. We're not shaming any of that. I don't even want this to sound like that. Like, we're shaming the folks who got out of their situation. Now they're in a more elite or, a higher status or what have you. I don't even want to work around that terminology, but I think it's fair to say, like, working around, like, a different class or system, to be in those rooms where not many people are. But what we are hoping is you stepping into that room, that awareness of who you are representing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I mean, there is also the point. I mean, to me, like, you just know that you cannot represent anybody.
Yeah.
And so just knowing that
the big ego thinks they would. Like.
Well, your decision can never be a replacement. Like, my individual experience as a woman of color, as a queer woman, or as as an immigrant, like, could never decide the priorities of those movements, because I'm a single person, right? Even if I actually went through some stuff that was serious or was hard or was, like, more, like, like, I've seen some stuff, but I'm still a single person. That is not a replacement for collective organizing, collective decision making.
Yeah.
So, like, just emphasizing that we need to be out there, and we need to see, okay, who is my people? Who are immigrant people? Who are Latinxes in this country?
Who's in charge?
Nobody.
Who's in charge?
Nobody.
Is it fair to say us? Not us too, but the mass, the group.
Yes, it should be. Like, how do we push that? How do we make sure that the collective decides, right? Create systems like participation, creating system where everybody is responsible, not just answering a survey, but actually having more and more people throw down and be trusted, and, like, having a lot of conversations with many people. And yes, and I mean, Monica just says that right there, like, making sure to open the space to other folks that are living outside of our privilege. Yes. So the problem is not that the boardroom doesn't have enough women of color, right? The problem is that all the decisions and priorities are created in a boardroom outside of the people in our communities that actually have the hardest, right? Like, I mean, Beyonce shouldn't be prioritizing the priorities for like Black women, for example. Jennifer Lopez should not be defining the priorities or necessary or necessities for Latinx women, right? Because they are not, they are not like, or Puerto Ricans, right? Right now, 100% of Puerto Rico doesn't have electricity, right? That's something that, Lin-Manuel Miranda doesn't know anything about. As somebody who profits from exploitation of his people, that's something that Jennifer Lopez knows nothing about, right? It's the people of Puerto Rico that don't have light right now. It's the Black people in Jackson, Mississippi, or Flint, Michigan, who don't have access to clean water, right? So how do we keep the people alive? How do we shift our focus to those people outside of our boardrooms, or outside of our strategy rooms? Because other than that, we're gonna end up with this, rules and priorities that are not aligned with what the people who are the most, who are actually struggling really need. And that's the topic of deference politics comes from this philosopher Olufemi Taiwo. That I wish I could have shared like the book image.
Cool if I read this.
Yeah, please do.
So the topic is difference epistemology. Real quick, can you give a quick definition of difference epistemology?
So difference epistemology is basically like a concept that says that you are that the people that are most directly affected or closest to the problem are the ones that are best equipped to guide the solution.
Yeah.
So anybody who's closest to the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so what often ends up happening, it's not that we're, when we say that, as I mentioned before, like every organization, like every movement organization has it in their mission statement, I swear. We believe those most directly affected by an issue should be defining the solution to the problem, or some version of that.
If you're not talking to people who ride the bus, don't talk about public transportation.
Absolutely, right? But the thing is that we don't actually, like, in implementation, so many organizations don't actually like say that they're gonna go and talk to the people who are most directly affected. They're not gonna say that they're gonna go and bring in and recruit and develop the leadership of like hundreds and then thousands of people who ride the bus. People who are, like incarcerated.
I feel like any movement, two, any organization that like I really respect, three, really any person, they are researcher. I guess we can use researcher. They typically lean into the mass, the group, like quality research, quality leaning into people's opinions. And not just stopping at, hey, what was your experience when you were young, but like you probably don't live there anymore and you probably aren't as aware of the needs going on. Like really finding people attached to the current issues.
Absolutely.
But real quick, I'm gonna give you that quote. Difference epistemology marks itself as a solution to an epistemic and political problem. But not only does it fail to solve these problems, it adds new ones. One might think questions of justice ought to be primarily concerned with fixing disparities around healthcare, working conditions, and basic material and interpersonal security. Yet conversations around justice have come to be shaped by people who have ever more specific practical advice about fixing the distribution of attention and conversational power.
It's like, so basically difference practices, the difference politics means that in any room, in a boardroom, in a strategy room, we're given the attention, the social capital to whoever has an identity that is linked or statistically associated with those material conditions, right?
That's like also scapegoating responsibility. Right? Like, that's not actually taking responsibility. That's creating the appearance of taking responsibility.
Absolutely. So it's basically like, okay, let's say we are in a boardroom. We are trying to talk about incarceration.
Yeah.
We are trying to we are abolitionist organizations, and we're trying to, get rid of prisons or jails. And I am definitely not talking about anybody in Nashville, because I've had the pleasure of working with so many amazing abolitionist organizations that do walk the talk. But it's an example, so it's hypothetical.
Yeah.
So let's say we are abolitionist organizations and we are trying to look for solutions. We're trying to close a jail, and we have absolutely no input from people who are directly, who are actually incarcerated. But we just look at the black person in the room and say like, hey, your race is more likely associated with incarceration. You should let us know what to do, and you should tell us what to do. You tell us what to believe. There's a huge problem with that, because you don't know if the person was actually incarcerated or not. That's to begin with, like right off the bat. You don't know, like, it can be somebody, like a black person who went to Harvard and like grew up in a middle class and upper class family. right? It's a completely different scenario. It's a completely different reality.
Yeah. Right. Did you?
Oh,
well,
no. And number two, you're just not actually talking to the amount of people that you need to be talking to, and not bringing them inside. Like, who are the opinions are many that you need.
Mm-hmm. There's actually in this article, and you can share it online. I actually have it posted on my Instagram right now at 94 Friend, but we never really do that. But anyways, there is a story in this essay where it talks about the writer talks about going into this board meeting, blah blah blah, and they have this task that needs to, like, I don't know, they're trying to relate to young black men or something like that, and basically Karen comes up to the writer in the board meeting and says, "I feel like you have more experience in this. I feel like you have," and this is, she just sees him as a black male, but if you look a little bit deeper, he is a first-generation black male from Nigeria. Parents were had PhDs, like a long list of things, and it had nothing to do with what his life really did not line up with the lives of the folks that she was hoping he would be able to communicate to. So he kind of even breaks it down.
He's like, I'm actually from a wealthy background.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
At one point he's like, she seemed like she had good intentions. But again, this just creates more problems, just like that base value idea around these different intersections, race, class. Like, it goes so much deeper than we realize. We just don't communicate enough around it. So she just takes him, black male, handle this. And he's like, actually, my childhood was nothing like, yeah, you're just talking to the wrong person. Yeah. That's basically what you have to tell her.
And it is a humble position for them to hold, because also, like, it's not, we're
for the person who asked for help, or for him? For him,
because there's a certain humility that it takes. I know that we are told that we should never talk about class, and we all feel like kind of really weird about class, and like just of him saying that I actually had all my needs met, and I actually had money. I actually, like, my parents have PhDs, so I am nothing like, what you're, not just because I am black, it means that all these things happen. And it's not that he's trying to distance himself with the,
with the community.
With the community, but it's saying, I am actually need like, maybe you are not the right person to write this article, but I'm also not the right person to write this article.
Yeah. He's saying we need to do a little bit more work.
But the thing is, too, though, how many times have you walked into a room, and let's be honest, because to me, how many times have you walked into a room and everybody just, like, especially in a room composed primarily of, like, white folks, and we're talking about anything race related or, like, social justice related, and they just defer to you, and they're like, you are right.
It has been this way since I was a kid. It's elementary, middle or high school, this teacher's like, who listens to Lil Wayne? This is like an honors English class. All these white kids. Like,
and Fernie?
Yeah, just the mad assumptions. Like, tell us about it. Do you want to talk about it?
And in social justice spaces, that's a lot of power.
Yeah,
actually,
it continues that same attitude.
I've been in this, especially like the liberal spaces where, like, it might be an elite institution, and it might be like a diversity and inclusion type of initiative, right?
We're gonna talk about that one day.
One time.
Okay. One time.
You'll be connected. It's gonna connect. It's all connected, but and I just, whatever thing comes out of my mouth, they're like, oh yes, girl, like, yes, queen, like, yes, and I'm just like, it's kind of dehumanizing in many ways. It's tokenizing.
All that affirmation is like kind of whack.
It's not honest. It's not true. It is kind of like tokenizing people of color. But that also, like, if I wanted to, I could have just be like, okay, y'all listen to me, do whatever I say. And I could capitalize on it. I could definitely do that. So it is like a thing that is like, it's a power for many people of color. It is dehumanizing and it is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
For some folks, like, it might be an opportunity to take control of the space, right? So, like, just knowing that, that also, what it tells me is that it creates, according to Olufemi Taiwo, it creates a culture of white cowards, right? And that also sticks to me.
That's so, yeah.
Because it's lazy. Like, as you're like, okay, as white people,
creating the imagery of diversity and inclusion or intersection, whatever.
You cannot just defer to whatever the person of color in the room is telling you to do.
Yeah.
You are responsible to own your own politics.
Yeah.
You should have your own politics and own them.
Your own analysis.
Yeah, you need to develop that. You shouldn't be like lazy to just like, okay, I'm just gonna defer to whatever the person of color in the room says or does, or like about topics like incarceration, about topics like immigration, about topics like indigenous sovereignty, right? I mean, we have this thing called like thank you to Decolonized Buffalo, which is another podcast, and you can find him on Instagram at Decolonized Buffalo, and he always brings this concept to light called the pretendians, right? The pretendians. So that's like a lot of the times is like mixed or like mestizo Latinxes that like, maybe there is some type of like that they're like, I'm indigenous, but they don't actually have any type of connection to a tribe. They're not grounded in it, but they may be like just dominating the space in the conversation and telling people what to do around it.
Yeah.
So we have many different sides of the coin, right? So if we don't actually develop our own analysis and our own politics, then we can just like defer into whoever in the room is, and that's usually the person that is the elite of whatever community is, because it is kind of a privilege to be in an elite classroom. Yeah. It's kind of a privilege to be in a boardroom, in a strategy room, and chances are that the past of such person that is making those decisions in that small room of people probably has specific privileges that allow them to get to that room to begin with. Yeah. So, to saying that, not a replacement for collective decision making, right? Yeah. And I think it is a very difficult thing to get because everybody gets touchy, right? Like, you have a single person that says like, well, I'm white, but I grew up poor. And I'm like, well, yeah, but then you also have more social mobility than a poor black person, for example. And then somebody that says, well, I am black. Like, you cannot invalidate my experience just because I was middle class or upper class. And I'm saying like, yes, your experience is very valid. You definitely have experiences with discrimination. But that's not all there is. There's more. So like individually, like I think we all need to get over ourselves.
I think we need to round back to get over ourselves here in a second. Before we get, because I think we need to tag on that a little bit more. Might need a little bully session, but whatever. Real quick though, and we're gonna play a song before we close out, but because we gotta separate them, we've got those folks who are in these positions out of like, what is the phrasing? We've got these people who are in these positions due to their privilege, whether it's like class or race privilege. But we do not want to discredit like leaders. I think if you find yourself working with somebody who actually is invested in doing the work of like meeting people, reaching out to people, taking surveys, building community, and actually discovering the needs of people, trust that. Because we don't want this to be used to just take down leadership. We're not out here trying to just like look for reasons to cancel folks. We want to show things to affirm, I guess, which might just be like who's actually putting in work, who's spending time in their community. But before we close out, we're gonna play a little song by Georgia Smith. This one is called Lifeboats. You might find that Georgia Smith has a really, really, really great class in race analysis herself, but listen in and check it out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
This song is really good. I don't know if you pick it up.
Yeah. And so, I think we're gonna keep diving into it. And it will stop it. We can keep diving in.
Let's stop it.
Yeah, let's do it.
And it all falls down.
How do you want to...
And it all falls down.
Breakdown like
How can you learn how to swim before you get in? Sometimes you gotta take the plunge just to get in. Life's not full of shallow end, your house ain't full of armbands. Stay afloat. Someone might put their arm out to help you. I don't know, I would. If I saw somebody drowning in a sea of self-confusion, I wanna be the one to try and understand why their tide ain't coming in and their light ain't shining. So why do we all fall down? If there's a reason we can stay afloat, why do we rise then drown? We're too selfish in our lifeboats. Why do we all fall down? If there's a reason we can stay afloat,
Yeah, it's getting
why
better.
do we rise then drown?
It's incredible.
So why all the richest staying afloat? See, all my brothers drowning even though they lit the boat. Mothership ain't helping anyone. See, the ships are getting bigger for the greed and wasteful men, soaking kids with their lives before they even got to 10. Sailing the internet waves, a tsunami of wise. A flood to take it under if we can't afford the life jackets. Majority don't even have the life jacket. Majority might fall with the tax brackets. The minority might jump to the next bracket. On the forms to sign up for a raft and a pay packet with the same old unemployed age bracket. Even money sinks to the bottom when it's waterlogged, so nobody truly stays afloat. Yeah. So why do we all fall down? If there's a reason we can stay afloat, why do we rise and drown? We're too selfish in our lifeboats. Why do we all fall down? If there's a reason we can stay afloat, why do we rise and drown?
Our internet sea.
And it all falls down. Yeah. And it all falls down again. And it all falls down. Yeah. And it all falls down.
Yeah, that thing going down.
Yeah, happening.
You ready?
Yeah.
You. Welcome back. This is DJ Fernie Mac and
Rebeltosa.
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 So, thank y'all for joining us today. That song we just played, Lifeboats by Georgia Smith. We're all in a life raft. Can we support each other? Can we build a boat? Can we build a better way? Let's find out. But as a little recap on the day, I'm going to start off with the first one. We talked about intersectionality, which has to do with things like race, gender, class, and we can add more. Location, where you live, sexual preferences. It goes on many different levels. Where are you from? I think I told y'all before, I went to China, and one of the coolest things about there was like to see black people in China was not to just see like African American folks, black folks from America. It was seeing black folks from all around the country. So to stand next to somebody, you cannot assume the same thing about the two of us. And it took that conversation to figure that out. But intersectionality, how do all these things play a part in our life and work experience? What rules are at play?
And without forgetting that, like, all these identities that we're naming, they're basically tools for colonizers, capitalists, to extract labor, land, resources, and keep all the wealth and power, right? So at the end, when we talk about class, it's not just like this other oppression category. It's just kind of like the end goal of, it's like the mission, the vision, the goal, like the la meta, no? Where the oppressor wants us to go. So like it's all about depriving people from their labor, their land, their resources. So that's intersectionality looks at all these functions of class, and we always need to look at how many of these functions of the system we have, how many identities are in, and like ultimately, like it's also incredibly important and essential that we look at class as well.
You bet. What's that right there?
Then we have difference politics, right? Like when we don't look at class, when we're just looking at the physical categories and the identities, we cannot just defer to whoever in the room might be associated with those, with incarceration, with poverty, with all these different things, right? With these experiences, because we cannot assume, right? A single individual cannot represent the whole community. And, we as, people who belong to these identities, like I cannot just internalize my own experience with discrimination and use that as that's it, right? Like it's a first introduction to my awakening, my political awakening. Identity was my introduction to my political awakening. But then after, to really, really create and form a thorough comprehensive analysis, I have to go out there and look at the people who look like me. Like, what are they going through? And what are the people that don't look like me but that are also going through some similar experiences? Like, what's their deal? Like, what do they want? And how do we bring them in? Because this is not about just myself. And ultimately, ultimately we all need to get over ourselves. Like, our single experiences, as painful as they might have been, they cannot define all the priorities of a movement. So especially we're in these positions of privilege, of power in a boardroom, a strategy room, we do have, like, our oppressions, our experiences with discrimination are valid. But how do we look outwards and be like, who is not in the room?
Yeah.
And who needs to be prioritized?
Yeah.
Is he me, or is it the immigrants that are in the border right now, that are in cages or in detention centers, or like the folks that don't have access to, like, a driver's license? Is it the folks that don't have water in Flint or electricity in Puerto Rico, right? Like, it's we need to actually be reaching out to a lot of people and form our own politics ultimately.
Yeah.
Anything more to add?
I just want to back that. Get over yourself. It's not just you, it's all of us. And that's a very inconvenient thing, or like thought process, to be like, oh, we all need to, I love Workers' Nights here in Nashville, or at Workers' Dignity, because I feel like a lot of it is prefaced with, we are receiving a service or help, putting together an action, but there's also going to be space to show up down the road for the next person going through this. And getting over yourself getting over yourself is highly aware of the fact that we are looking at a group of us sharing this experience, and what does it look like to fight the system, yes, together, and fight the system that suppresses all of us. Come on.
I mean, and like Monica said, and sometimes it's who can our work impact the most, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and talking about fighting collectively, 7 women from Honduras went on strike on Friday at EventWorks, a multi-million-dollar companies. They organized a strike to demand better wages for salary, like that they were promised, right? They were promised salary increases back in March. They were not delivered. They went on strike and they got fired. So, like, now we're fighting alongside them. We filed an unfair labor practice with EventWorks. And if you want to support their case, please call Grant Baker, our homie. He is the EventWorks Nashville Market Executive, and demand the 3 things that the workers are asking for. So call him at 615-714-7740 and demand that the workers get their jobs back.
Where's the camera?
Demand that they give all 7 workers the salary increases that they were promised, and demand that they hire the 1 additional staff member in the 2 different areas that the workers are asking for.
We're coming for you, Grant.
We're coming for you.
You should be nervous.
We know who you are. We know where you live. So, come on and help. We are ones. Las guerreras hondureñas, they're amazing, and they're all women, and they're all like Honduran. They're so cool. Yeah. They took some of the most brave things that they took one of the most bravest risks without even knowing. Like, this was all organic. We had nothing to do with it. We're supporting them now that they got fired, but they all planned this and implemented on their own. So, they deserve all of our support. Really, really.
I walked into the room the other day and I saw Cecilia, like, real intense typing. I see a group of people who I had never seen before at the center, and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, there was an energy in the room, and Cecilia tells me, like, they just quit their job and they got fired, or they went on strike and got fired 2 hours later. And I looked at them and I said, congratulations. And I know that's a hard place to be in, to have lost a job, but to be in the position of you stood up for yourself, and you will make change for the next people. I told you, I took somebody to a job interview there. They're no longer just fighting for themselves, but that person as well.
Well, because, I mean, Fern organizes staff agency workers who, like, are like day labor, basically. And so there's somebody that, like, they're basically filling up their work, they're basically bringing staff agency workers who have no collective, like, very few collective bargaining leverage. They're bringing in to fill out the positions that these women left behind. So, yeah, we do need to listen sometimes, Monica. Amen. So, And yes, I mean, it is amazing. Please, 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 please support. There are women that are in their 20s, they're in their 50s. Like, it's just 7 women that are on fire. They're so funny. They just have this dynamic together. Like, I just like want them to adopt me. And call Graham Baker. Tell him to listen to the workers.
Listen to the workers, Graham.
So once again, y'all, Fernie Mac and Rebeltosa, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
All right, y'all.